all kinds of lessons that I learned, again, that I was like, I've been doing this wrong from the beginning. And so like, all right, now I've figured it out, right? And,
So
I'm not saying it's like I'm trying to be like Melvin's Pilot Fish Band or anything, but I'm just saying if you're talking about a longevity of a career playing music and engaging with a dedicated fan base, that there's an artistic exchange that elevates everybody. I don't understand why they're not talked about more in those terms.
Welcome to The Creative Asylum, a weekly podcast that digs deep into the minds of visionary creators of all stripes. Musicians, actors, filmmakers, writers, artists, cartoonists, and cultural disruptors. Here, we'll discuss perspectives of living life on your own terms. Life lessons that keep us grounded, insane, and sometimes pull us back from the edge. So, take a deep breath, loosen your grip on the bland and the boring. This is your weekly prescription for authentic living, creative clarity, and hopefully, a little bit of cultural rebellion.
Side effects may include spontaneous joy, existential epiphanies, and an uncontrollable urge to do weird and beautiful things.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel House. I'm your host. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Today's guest is my friend Conan Neutron, who is a long-running host of Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal, which is a mouthful on a good day. It's an amazing podcast where he has long conversations with all kinds of musicians from the underground, from the DIY world. It's been going on for 11 years, if you can believe that. He's also a guitar player, singer, and songwriter for his band Conan Neutron's Secret Friends. He also puts out his own records on his own label, and he also puts out records by other friends, and he also is involved in a annual music festival. He's one of those people that like seems to juggle 48 kittens at the same time and makes it seem easy and effortless. We'll talk about all this stuff. Rather than me wasting your time, let's just get over to the conversation. Here it is, Conan Neutron and the amazing conversation. Good day, sir. How are you?
Hello. Great to be here, man.
Awesome.
Long time no see.
Yeah, for those tuning in, Conan just interviewed me the other day for his podcast, and so we kind of did a little quid pro quo, I suppose, right?
You could call it a quid pro quo.
I could call it that. I don't know. I was thrilled to be on your show, and I'm equally thrilled to have you on my brand new show. And this, I guess, as much as anything, seems like a great place to start because my awareness of you started with your podcast, which is now what, 14 years in running, something like that.
Not quite that long. It's in our personal timeline of now. It is sitting competently at 11 years, kind of going towards 12. Which is still in podcast years like 99 or something, right? I did do a show before Protonic Reversal called You Can't Stop the Signal for 2 years.
Okay.
So I have been podcasting, about 14 years.
Okay.
It's been around long enough, you know.
It's a long time. It's a
long time. Considering that like most podcasts never make it past a year.
Right.
Peace and love in my heart. But
time to get nervous.
It's almost like I would equate it to like touring, that if you're, you got to get past that, like, whatever, like 8-9 day mark.
Right.
And then you're good. And then after that, it's like 5 weeks. And then, like, there's like level up situation where, like, if you can make it past here, you're going to be okay. It's like the same thing, but with podcasting.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like girlfriends and wives too.
Relationships. Yeah. Adult
the first
things
month,
that people can relate to. Yeah.
The first 6 months, the first year, we made it to 5 years. I still like you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, what was you're one of the longest running podcasters around that I'm aware of. Not many people can say they've been doing this for 11 years, much less 2 or 3. What was your initial inspiration just for like, I'm going to start a podcast at a time when it was a really new thing and like the technology barely even existed like it does today to do this kind of thing?
There were almost no tools to do it. In fact,
right.
I'm fond of invoking Fry's Electronics, the long-lost Fry's Electronics, because that's what you got to do. You got to go down to the electronics store and do a bunch of things. Arcane research too. It wasn't like there was like some YouTube tutorial on how to do this.
Right.
Buying mixers and adapters. Right. Yeah, which is great. I'm all for this, by the way. I wish I had that, right?
Yeah.
Because you had to buy like mixers, audio interfaces, get adapters, so on and so on. I mean, you got to really want it. And it's interesting because there are podcasts of this genre that are bigger and that maybe have more episodes, but I'm pretty sure it's the oldest one of the bunch of them, at least amongst the popular ones, the ones that I know of. There's another one that's like got twice as many episodes, started like a year later, and but he has a team.
Right.
It's just me, and that's
right.
And by the way, that's smart. I'm not like trying to talk trash. I'm like, that's smart to have other people doing it. I just have never done it that way. It really comes down to I wanted to make the show that I wanted to hear, which I was not hearing at the time.
That makes sense.
And that's really what it comes down to. I wanted to have it be a discovery point of people to find new music that maybe they weren't aware of or that they had never heard, and give context for that as well, and kind of get to the heart of the people that, if you do know, that maybe you don't ever get an in-depth conversation with them. You don't, and you certainly don't get an in-depth conversation with them with somebody that also has lived the life.
Right.
Which is to say, toured and recorded and whatever, but in the present tense, not in the past tense. And I think you get a different kind of conversation. Peace and love to the Terry Grosses out there and whatnot. That like you get a different kind of conversation when it engages that way. And I think you get a degree of relaxation that you end up talking about other things naturally that just kind of make it interesting. Or
well, I think it's been borne out, right? I mean,
I hope so. Yeah,
it's worked out, right?
And so I trucked along for, I'm going to say like 6-7 years with just being in the normal podcast thing of, I have End of Radio by Shellac as the end song for a reason, which is, can you really call it broadcasting if no one's listening?
Right.
It's always like, it's like the idea of the message in the bottle. You're recording these things, you're throwing them out in the ocean because it's such a passive medium. You don't get to engage with the audience normally. Now you kind of do with like YouTube comments and stuff like that, but
it's not
back in the day. It was not the same. And if there was engagement, it was asynchronous and it was like months later. Like there's been plenty of times that I was ready to hang on my hat and like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And then I would get to some really nice email from somebody saying some really nice things.
Makes it all worthwhile, right?
You're like, okay, there are people out there.
It's kind of like being on a shitty tour, and you're just like this is really kind of bumming me out. And then like there's one person at one show in the middle of nowhere that comes up to you and sheepishly just like, I'm so happy to meet you, and they're and suddenly you're like, dude, you just made everything like
you do not realize how much good you did me today.
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Well, and so that everything changed in 2020 though, because I was already doing the show. I was, already good at it. I mean,
so you're 6 years in.
Well better be. Yeah, 6 years in. And the thing was there, the art, whatever you want to call it, content. I prefer not to call it content, was there. And then suddenly all these people, they're very piously, oh, I don't have time for podcasts. Okay, you want a cookie? It's not for you then. Fine. Don't worry about it.
I want both, but
Yeah. All those people suddenly had all the time in the world. And, I was in a situation where our tour, we got 2-3 shows into our tour canceled, all future tours canceled. I got laid off from my job too. So I was literally just staring at the wall, being like, wow, okay, so the one thing I can do is do the show. Like maybe I'll just lean into doing that. And so I really stepped it up. At one point I was doing like 5 episodes a week. Like,
wow,
it was
really?
Because I had nothing else going on, right?
Right. And I guess everybody else that you interviewed also similarly had nothing else going on.
Everyone was around. I landed a bunch of like, in my personal estimation, kind of big whales that maybe I've been chasing for a while. So like, yeah, sure, let's do it. What else am I doing? I'm like, great.
Yeah.
And at that same time, a lot of people who were just feeling really lonely and isolated and just having a really rough go of things really connected with the show. And it provided like a bit of a life preserver in a lonely ocean for folks. And which I don't take for granted or discount in any way, shape, or form, because it was just as much for me as it was for them, you know, because it was definitely, you know, what's the big black song, you know, sit around the house, stare at the wall, stare at each other, and wait till we die.
Right.
That's
But, you
sort of
know,
like, that was the vibe.
I mean, also your podcast is longer form than most. And so if
which yes.
Which in 2020 is perfect because, you know, I got time. I don't have a job. I don't have this. I can't go and interact with other people. I can literally sit down and feel like I'm in the same room with these people and just be engaged in these conversations for a couple of hours.
And that's the idea. It's conversational. So it's not like it's not an everything nothing show, which is to say that there's a plan to it. There are things that I want to talk about, but it's not overtly structured, and it sounds conversational because it is conversational. So it's a specific thing that if you're not familiar with my style, you could be like, oh, what is this guy? He just turns on the mics and start talking. Good. It's supposed to sound like that. Sorry to break it to you, but even folks that like get all the credit in the world for being like, you know, great interviewers, like there's usually a lot of research that like goes into it. It just happens to be the most people I have on. I never have anyone on I'm not interested in.
Right.
So it may just be a lifetime of research where I'll have to like check dates on stuff because I'm not a computer, right?
Sure.
But I know what I want to talk about generally, and the idea is to give it that informal feel. This is like the hanging out after the show,
right?
Kind of vibe.
Well, I assume, especially when you began, you reached out to people that you were already friends with, or maybe not, right? So
people I knew from music, people that I played shows with, or just I got their email.
Right.
I mean, I used to write for zines in the late 90s, so I still have had people's contact information.
So there's already a connection. There's already, I don't know if that's the right word, but there's already a certain kind of intimacy. It's not just like, going back to the Terry Gross example, I mean, I think she's great, but it always feels very, quote unquote, professional and very question and answery, not conversational in the same way.
Yes.
And my preference, generally, especially if I'm listening to podcasts, is if it's a conversational podcast, personally, I don't want it to feel like Q and then A and then Q and then A. Like, that's not as interesting to me.
I 100% agree. Some reviewers on iTunes do not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but the thing is, people that are not in the DIY world, for lack of a better term, that's what they think it is that like it has to be question and answer, question and answer, a question, full answer, question, full answer. And look, it's not like I can't do that. And it's not like for some people you have to do that because that's the only way to get anything out of them. But it's not the only way to do things. And to say that it is just shows a complete misunderstanding of the medium. Because for me, it's the potential of the medium is it can be anything. Not everybody that started COVID shows stuck with it, right? But some of them were really interesting. And I was super excited to be like, what are people going to do with these modern tools? Like, can something cool come out of this? And I'm excited for that. And I'm always excited to see people like take that journey, just like I am with you and your show, of because with you, it's even more of an example. You were at this when I was in grade school. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you really in it. Like,
the subtext here is I'm old.
Yeah.
but you know what?
I was choosing to use as an attribute, but yeah,
I am. I mean, as far as when I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, I'm old. Okay. Yeah. It's true.
But having those years of experience, one of the things that led me towards down this path was we would do these college radio interviews for the band, and just would be like,
right.
God, this is so. You're not asking, like, we could give you so much cool stuff, and you're asking the most bargain basement pick and save questions.
Oh my God, yes.
And that's the format, right? So, so it started to be we would just take the show over and start doing our own thing, which sometimes people found delightful, sometimes people less so, but who cares? If you lose control of your show to a band, was it ever really your show in the first place?
Right. True.
So that's where that came from, is like I wanted to make the kind of show I wanted to hear. And then it happened that, overnight success, 6 years in the making, the audience increased by like 10,000-fold.
Wow.
Great. And there's a huge back catalog. It's asynchronous. You can engage with these at any time. And that's one of the beautiful things about the medium is it's always right there. At least as long as the art itself is there, or whatever you want to call it. It's not really art, but as long as the stuff is there. It's there for whenever you're ready, if you're ready for it.
Well, I think the overlap between what you're doing and what I'm trying to do is that in both cases we are talking to people who are engaged in well, we'll just call it creating art, but doing creative things. You know, music is an innately creative thing, right? And so I think in a sense you can call it art because you're actually talking to creative people about how they think and what they do, and that is basically living a life that is inherently creative.
The creative process. Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember what episode I started doing it in. I think it was early 100s. I don't know. But I just started asking at the very end, why do you do what you do? Because it led to some interesting responses.
Sure.
Which is usually there's a gut check. Oh, I don't know how to do anything else. Or because I'm too stupid to do anything else, or you know, some degree along a witticism, and then you like wait a beat, and then somebody actually thinks about it, and then they answer earnestly, and that is absolutely fascinating to me because if you're not a huge artist, you never get asked questions of that kind of depth,
right?
And that's the one canned question that I always ask, and I ask it at the end. Because that should be the end, because that's really the heart of it. Why am I doing it? You know, like, well, I'm trying to give a little bit back of the complete ass kicking that music has given to me over my life, for better or for worse, for you know, great success and great ruination. And that this is one of my ways to kind of give back and be part of that ecosystem. And again, make the kind of show that I want to hear that should exist. I mean, there should be 40 shows like Protonic Reversal. I mean, there are a couple, you know, and great. And there's other shows that like do a totally different thing, and that's, you know, good on them as well. But I just am coming from that perspective of if you don't see it, make it.
Yes. Right. There's a void, fill the void. So
absolutely.
Do you think you ever would have started doing a podcast had it not been for the fact that you were in a band, writing and playing music?
Probably not, because I mean, I was into like reading science fiction and comic books and Stephen King books and so on and so on. But I wasn't like immersed in that world the same way it was when music came in and, again, either saved or ruined my life, depending on who you ask. Because, you know, I heard bands, you know, Nirvana specifically, which led to like Sonic Youth and Scratch Acid and Melvins and Butthole Surfers and so on and so on and so on.
So I find that interesting that you started with Nirvana and then you went backwards. I guess that's not uncommon, right?
Well, yeah, not at the time. But that also had to do with the fact that Kurt especially was very good about the bands that he loved, kind of giving them, I'm going to wear a flipper shirt, you know, like in this photo shoot, like doing the kind of thing where if you're curious about it, there's avenues of discovery that you can find out, which I'm grateful for because, I mean, Nirvana was a gateway drug for me, right? That I found all this stuff where it's like, oh my God. And the next thing you know, I'm listening to like The Birthday Party and, you know, like really like going deep and just being like, wow, this world's amazing. And then I was like, wow, I want to do this if I can.
So what year? What year? How old are you at this point?
I mean, this is like 91, 92. So I'm in high school, like when this happened. Like, and like in high school, like, let's see, I graduated in 95. So I guess it would have been like a freshman or something along those lines. But it was the first thing that really sparked for me. And me and my friend Clay was on the cover of the first Secret Friends record. We would sit here and like make, you know, album titles, make logos, etc. Like all the things of being in a band without the hassle of actually playing music. Yeah, exactly. And so then he shows up at my house, and he has a bass in his hand. Is like, hey, I just got this bass. You need to go buy a guitar so we can be a band. And I said, okay. And I went and I bought a guitar. Now, did we become a band? Well, like I said, we had the band names worked out. We had the discography all worked out for what it was going to look like. The actual music part of it was about what you would think it would be. But that's what got me on the road.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And so they're intrinsically tied. I eventually did learn how to play. Yes. What's weird, I'm one of those people that I actually didn't learn to play guitar by playing other people's songs. I just decided, oh, that sounds neat. I'll just do that. This is.
I understand that completely. I really do.
And so, like most people, I was horrible for a really long time, but we didn't like play any shows or anything. But then I really wanted to stick with it. Clay kind of wanted to do other things. He was like a writer as well. He wanted to do like writing. He was doing zine. Again, zine's invoked. Take a drink. And things along those lines. So fast forward like a little bit, I end up starting a thing with a guy I met. Classified musicians wanted ad.
Yeah.
Named Chris Bolig, who was a drummer looking for other musicians to play with, and he referenced Black Sabbath, David Bowie, Nirvana, Mudhoney, and Flipper, I think. And I was like, great.
I would totally answer that ad.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, those are all my favorites. Oh, it's Sonic Youth too. Sonic Youth also.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
I was like, you just named like all my favorite bands. Great.
Right.
So I call up this guy, and he's unfortunately passed on now, but to his telling, I basically was like, okay, cool. So do you know Fugazi? Yeah, I know them. Okay, cool. Do you know the Birthday Party? No, I don't know them. Okay, do you know Scratch Acid? No. Like, so, and he used to phrase it very entertainingly, man, as me basically quizzing him on what he did or did not know in music. Because at the time I was working at Tower Records. So my world was even like expanding even more so. I was getting into like Miles Davis and like Hank Williams Sr. and so on and so on. And I don't remember quizzing him in that way, but that's how that interaction started. Then I didn't do anything about it for like weeks, and I don't remember why. And then I was at a Mudhoney show with Cosmic Psychos, and my friend Brian was like, "Hey, Conan, can you give me keys to the car? I need to get something out of it." And this ginger-haired fellow to my right was like, "Wait, your name's Conan?" It's like, "Yeah. Did you answer a classified ad, last month?" I was like, Yeah, I did. Are you Chris? He was like, yeah, I am. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And then like, I was like, sorry, I never called you back. Got busy doing this and that. And then we got together and we started playing together in his house, which he assured me that like, oh yeah, the neighbors are cool with this. They weren't, by the way. The neighbors were not cool with this.
The neighbors are rarely cool with it.
The neighbors were in no way, shape, or form cool with it. And because we were, and I didn't even have a car at the time. I took a BART and then bus, like with my little like freaking practice amp and guitar, all the way out to Ocean Beach, which if you don't know San Francisco geography is like, that's pretty much as far as you can go without hitting the ocean.
Yep.
And so, yeah, one of the early practices of what became Replicator. So that became the band known as Replicator, which I know it's very atypical, but my first band was for like, it was like 10 years of that band.
Really?
Like that's the band that, other than Secret Friends, most people kind of know me from, if they know me at all. And yeah, I just Chris and I just continued on. We made records, we toured. I got the bug, and there you go.
So fast forward to every time I try to say Conan Neutron, Protonic Reversal, it's like I have grapes in my mouth.
You can sound like a genius, like if you do an edit. You'd be like, oh, he got it immediately.
Yeah, all right.
Take 7.
But I probably won't. So Conan
Mike
Neutron,
Watt gets it wrong
Friends.
1 out of every 3 times, and I just stopped correcting him. It's like, it's Mike Watt.
Sure.
He can do whatever he wants.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Exactly. So okay. So Secret Friends, I'm assuming that came before the podcast. Or did it come after?
Actually, podcast predates Secret Friends by a little bit.
Okay, because I know the first record was 2015, right?
The first record's 2015, so it is kind of interesting. So I was in a band called Mount Vicious after Replicator, and a band called Victory and Associates. Victory and Associates, it's kind of on the downswing. I was more moving towards, hey, let's demo things ahead of time and work on those, do it that way. And those guys exclusively wanted to play in a room, record it, and then never listen to the recordings, apparently. But it was not. Sorry, that sounds super salty. It just, we were going different ways of how we wanted to proceed, and that band just could not get arrested, man. Like we did what we did well, but we were a little bit too early, a little bit too late. Who knows what? But just couldn't catch a break, and it had been a rough sort of year and a half. So we're like, well, why don't we just take a little break for like 6 months? And we'll come back to it. And if we're still not feeling it, then maybe we can call it a day. Or maybe we'll come back renewed with vigor. So during that time, since again, I was getting the idea of like demoing songs on my own, like songwriting, that I hit up Toshi Kasai, who had recorded the last Victory and Associates record, the great Toshi Kasai, recorded so much Melvin stuff. Tool, Foo Fighters, so many great great sounding records. And I was just like, hey, I got these songs. I kind of think I want to try to make a record on my own because I've never done that. And it might be terrible, but I think this is if there's ever a time to do it, it's right now. And this is the time. What do you think? And he's like, these songs are good. Let's do it. I was like, oh, okay. So then, cool. But now I need to have somebody to play this music.
Right.
And I firmly believe that, at least in the rock idiom, that you're as good as your drummer.
Absolutely.
And so I have a long list of people that I knew,
but you got arguably, you went to the top of your list. And
the best living drummer in rock and roll. Yeah. So I make this list, and it's like 20, 25 names, right? So I was like, I'll start the list, and as they tell me no, I'll just eventually someone will say yes. Because like, look, there's no money in this. There's no like glory in this. This is just a weird thing I want to do, right? And yeah, and then Dale was first, and he said yes. I was like, what? Really? Oh.
So
okay.
Did you know Dale already personally?
Yeah, I had seen him. Melvins were around San Francisco. I got to Oakland around 95, so they had been there a little bit before me, but they were around. I saw Altamont plenty of times too. I knew him. We weren't like best of buds yet or anything, but like I definitely was familiar. And so I got Dale Crover that's going to play drums on these songs. That's a huge shot in the arm, right?
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
So I hit up Tony Ash, who he's a friend of mine, great bass player. His old band Trophy Wives and Victory and Associates were label mates together. We toured together. It's just a great rock bass player, great dude, person I like being around. I was like, hey, do you want to do this? And he's like, absolutely. And I was like, cool. Well, Crover's playing drums, so make sure to practice. And then that made the first record. And then I didn't know what it was going to be. If I ever thought we would ever play a single show, let alone tour, let alone to be like the culmination of my life's work, I probably wouldn't have called it a sentence-long band name. But hindsight's 2020.
Sure. So did you tour with? Did Dale tour with you as well?
No, so the crazy thing about I think it was like a full. So the record just sat around for forever, and then I just released it. I was like, well, let's just release this and see what happens. And at that point, then I'd written a second record, which was Art of Murder. Okay, I know what this is, and I can do it better because the immediate thing with it was that, wow, this is the best thing I've ever done, and I was 37, like the same time that a lot of people are like hanging up their spurs, like putting the guitars up on the racks and be like, I think I'm over it. I'm like, wow, I just got good. I mean, of course it was good before, but in the way that like this was like the final form exercise of like everything that I have learned has built to this moment
came together.
Yeah, and then a lot of it was just like, wow, I've been doing things wrong most of my life creatively, which there's something at that moment. You can choose to ignore that or not. And I was like, I'm going to own this and be like, look, at least I figured it out eventually. Right. And I took a lot of, I think you think about Bukowski or like Picasso or people that were like late in life's like successes creatively. I'm not talking about like financially, just like creatively, like finding their way and finding their voice later. And I was like, it's all right. It's okay. I got there eventually. Great. Made Art of Murder, which in my estimation and the estimation of the record buying public and record fans is better record. Concept record about Hannibal Lecter.
And I'd like to just add that, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Buzz Osborne also lend a little bit of his vocal?
He does backups on Avid Fan and Share of Antlers, I think, if I remember correctly. And Dana from Batwings, Catwings does some cool harmony vocals and stuff in there. So basically already you can kind of see where it's going, where it's like I'm building on this awesome like rough foundation of scrappy rock and roll that definitely informed from other bands, but also like harkening back to classic rock and but through my own idiom, not ignoring like post-punk and new wave and stuff like that, bringing that even if it's just as an arrangement process, but big riffs, memorable choruses, and that just started down the line. And then it was like, well, I guess it should play some shows. And Dale's permanently busy, like doing stuff.
Yes, for sure.
Always. I mean, Melvin's like one of the hardest working bands in rock and roll.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe that's not said enough, but I'm saying it right here. I'm very brave to say it, by the way.
Well, can we just add the fact that Melvins have been active for over 40 years?
Yeah, never stopped.
I
That's
mean,
crazy.
and never stopped.
Who else? I mean, other than like when everybody did, like for that brief period of COVID, right? But
sure. But I mean, they put out more records in a 2-year period than most bands have
their whole
in a career.
discography.
In a career. I mean, yeah, it's. I don't even know. I don't know how people keep up with the entirety of the Melvins' musical output, because it's overwhelming sometimes when you just look at the list. You're just like, how is this possible?
Well, and I took a lot of inspiration from that too. Like that was something that was like, wow, that's a way to be that, you just do whatever you want. And people will either along for the ride or they won't. And certain things like, okay, that's cool, but it doesn't work here, so just hold on to it, and then maybe years down the line, like, oh, crack the code on that, or oh, that fits nicely with this. All kinds of lessons that I learned, again, that I was like, I've been doing this wrong from the beginning. And so, like, all right, now I figured it out, right? And, so I'm not saying it's like I'm trying to be like Melvin's Pilot Fish Band or anything, but I'm just saying if you're talking about a longevity of a career playing music and engaging with a dedicated fan base, that there's an artistic exchange that elevates everybody, I don't understand why they're not talked about more in those terms.
If you're enjoying this conversation, please make sure you hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video, leave a comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. It's the quickest way to grow our channel, and it's absolutely free. You can also subscribe to our other channels on social media. Check out our Instagram at Creative Asylum CA, that's the letter CA, or on TikTok at The Creative Asylum, that's all one word. Our website is thecapod.com, and our Facebook profile is the same, facebook.com/thecapod. All right, back to the episode. And you never toured the Enemy of Everyone. You didn't tour until The Art of Murder? Okay.
Arguably, only after Art of Murder had been around for a while. And after that, then it started being, okay, well, because then I ended up moving out to Milwaukee. Tony lived in Kenosha, which is like between Chicago and Milwaukee, for a brief period of time. So then with two of us in the same state, at least, then we're like, okay, cool. Well, we can.
So what year was that you moved there?
Band. 2017, right?
Okay,
yeah.
You've been there a while.
And the Midwest is great for proximity. Like all the cities are very close together, especially when you come up touring from like the Bay Area, where it's like, okay, it's 6 hours to LA, it's like 10 to Portland. You have to really want it to be a touring band from California. Not that it's like, oh, it's so hard being a touring band from California, but it is. I mean, the East Coast bands will never know. Like, okay, 2-hour drive, that's adorable.
Yeah, like if you're a New York band, how many shows you can play within a 2 to 3 hour?
It's astounding.
Like you can literally go play a show and come home and sleep in your own bed every night half the time.
We're
if you
play
want
a show 3 states away and then be back in time for breakfast. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's crazy. So just before we move forward, I also want to focus on something that interests me, and having had my own record label. Working with different designers was always something that. So on your first 2 records, your first record, the Enemy of Everyone, the artwork was David Yao.
Jesus Lizard, yeah,
and your art direction for the second record was Rick Froberg,
who I've been hassling to do a record cover for me for, I'm going to go ahead and say 10 years.
I mean, musically, these are 2 huge vocal heroes of mine who just who also happen to, be visual artist people as well. And you freaking got them on your first 2 records.
Well, and so that's something that, absent of context, it's like who's this guy? But it's like, no, but I've been around and doing it. If you're around and you're not a dick, like you meet cool people. You'll never get millions out of it, but you meet cool people and you make common cause with folks. And yeah, I mean, it was great, right? Like it's something where I don't take that lightly as well, that I can ask these people that are in our world giants, and they'll be like, yeah, man, let's go. And I'm like, great.
Well, I think there's a lesson to that too. That's kind of the lesson is when I was like, I don't know, 5, 6 years old, a lesson that my mom taught me that has always stuck with me is, it's a simple one, but it really stuck with me. And that's that ask. Like if you don't ask, you'll never know. And what's the worst thing that can happen? They'll say no. But what I've discovered is very often if you reach out to people for, let's say, to be a guest on your podcast or to, play drums in your record,
Yeah.
you might be incredibly surprised how often people be like, yeah, I'd love to. Because the thing is, so many people are like, oh, I could never ask them. I'm like, why not? It's like, oh, nobody ever asks them because everybody thinks you can't ask them. And then when they get asked, they're like, yeah, that sounds like fun.
I would love to.
And boom, there you go.
And I think there's something about me, and it's maybe just like being in this world of DIY for so long. I'm
Mhm.
pretty much immune to rejection.
Mhm.
Because I've always, by choice, because we're not at a high enough level where it would even make sense to pay someone to do it, and book my own tours and book our own shows. And it's by choice. It's not like, because people act like, booking agent. Oh, we got a booking agent now. Who cares? Okay, fine. How much are you paying them? How much are they taking off the top? And are they providing opportunities you couldn't get yourself? And the answer for me always has been no.
So you still book your own shows?
By choice. The only time
Okay.
that I don't is if it's if we're on support for like a bigger tour or something, right? So what I'm getting at is that if you're booking U.S. tours, you really are going to become immune to rejection. and then also, it's something to be said for Japan. They'll always say no. They will not just like leave you on red like people do in the U.S., which is like the more cowardly way of doing it.
Right. Yes.
But from the larger perspective, it's just, and that's one of the reasons why, especially as both the band and the show's grown in stature, like I just ask.
Sure.
Oh, we can't do it. All right, cool.
And over time, you're an increasingly more known quantity too.
Yeah.
So you're not a random band trying to book their first show in Cleveland or wherever.
And people that are in other bands are like, wow, you're so good at this. I'm like, well, like, goddamn, well, it better be. Like, I've been doing this for multiple decades. If I'm not good now, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Oh, you should start a booking agency. Oh, yeah. But the thing I hate doing the most out of being in a band, yeah, let me just do that as my job. Sounds great. Yeah.
Sure.
But that said, like, is it a path I could recommend for everyone? No, because because all the mistakes that I made on the way kind of paved the road for me to be in the position and be the Conan Neutron I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to hear that. Everyone wants overnight success. I'm like, well, this is an overnight success 26 years in the making, so I don't know what to tell you.
Right. It's just that overnight happened a little later than people wanted.
Yeah, whatever. We didn't say what night it was going to be.
Well. So your next couple of records, one is listed on Discogs as a compilation, but it looks to me like a split. But Protons and Electrons. And then
it's not just a split. This is got, and by the way, everything with this band is like a paragraph of information. It's a series of split singles that were released as 7 inches.
Oh, cool.
Okay. And so the idea was protons, electrons, and neutrons make the atom, right? So the idea was the other side was either bands that are in the band, recording, live band, some importance to the history of the band, whatever, connective tissue, right? And so it was one side was Secret Friends and the other side was that. And then at the end of it was Atom 1, Atom 2, Atom 3, so on and so on. They were collected as a compilation. So you have one side that's a Conan Neutron, the Secret Friends record, and one side that's a cool comp.
Right.
Now, can I tell you the whole split 7-inch idea? Everyone that ran a label was like, don't do that.
Why not?
Like, what do you mean don't do that? It was like, they won't sell. Don't do it. And I was like, cool, but I am going to do it because it's the thing I want to do.
And it's fun. It's a fun music community thing that you do with your friends that are in other bands.
And that's why I want to do it. It's like, this is for the adventure of it. You know what I mean? This is like, and actually a bunch of them did sell. Some of them didn't,
okay.
And I will say that was about when I was like, wow, the pace of putting one of these out like every month and then putting out the compilation and touring and whatnot, like the cracks really started the show. Like
sure.
Orders were just sitting around for like weeks. And I just felt terrible about it. And so that's ultimately what led to me partnering with Learning Curve for the next few records, because the demand is too great problem to have for me to be able to do and bring this out to the world live at the same time.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Seismic Wave Entertainment. Is that you? Is that your label?
Yeah. I started that 2000. I think Mount Vicious was the first release, if I remember right, and that would have been 2009 because that was the band right after Replicator. That was me and Chris from Replicator, and kind of like, not my words, Bay Area super group of people.
So you're you're a musician, you're a songwriter, you're a booking agent, you are a record label owner, um, you are a podcast mogul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you are a man of many hats, and you clearly have boundless energy to be able to do all this stuff, because that's a lot. Most people, I mean, I can relate to this because I've kind of operated similarly, although not quite so much these days anymore. But I'm just kind of fascinated with this, like oh, well, actually,
It's a
okay,
lot.
so it's a lot. And for some people,
if you really like just line by line put, I'm like, wow, that's all. And that also, that's not mentioning Caterwaul, the 4-day music festival that me and Reiner
wow,
from Learning Curve throw every year, which is it's in its I think 5th year coming up. That's not counting the movie show that I'm on where I just co-host and help produce. Like, yeah, it's a lot, dude.
it's
Yeah.
a lot. But I assume that the word boredom never enters your vocabulary.
I don't understand how people can be bored.
Right.
It's not a thing that happens with me.
So what inspired you? I'm just curious, what inspired you to want to put out your own records as opposed to, shopping the record and try to get signed? Or was that something you did try to do?
No, I mean, so it's, so it started with Mount Vicious, and that's a whole story in and of itself. But more or less the idea was it needed to be on my timeline, not the timelines of others. And more so with Secret Friends, because especially there was this time period where it's just like boom, 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 Creedence Clearwater style, right? Just like record. And that's kind of how I liked it. And record labels like, oh no, we want to put one record and then you tour on that for 3 years. I'm like, cool. I'm not interested in that even a little bit. Like, I will tour.
Right.
And we can be a catalog band. I enjoy catalog bands, and but like, it needs to be more on this timeline. And I eventually kind of relented on that a little bit. Just as it was one of those things where nobody's taking a risk on anything. And for me, it's like, this is a band that it makes money, not tons, but it makes money. We go out on the road. We played some bigger shows every year. The band is well regarded. All the things that record labels say that they want. But what I'm not is like 22 years old. And I don't know. And also, it's a sentence-long band name. There's a paragraph of information with every record. I mean, I get it. It's a little more on the esoteric side. But for whatever reason, people have always been like, yeah, we really love what you do, but not enough to take that risk. And it's like, I'm not sure what the risk would be. As the person who actually does all the receipts and sees what we sell and like that we make money on it, I'm not sure what risk you're referring to, but okay.
I think maybe the risk is it's not enough money.
Yeah, it makes enough. Yeah. You know what? That's probably it. It makes money, but not enough.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got all the bean counters with their spreadsheets going, well, we're only going to make $20 off of this, and we need to make 3,000. Or I don't know.
I'd rather do cool stuff, and like that's then okay. Then
and you have absolute and complete creative freedom to do whatever you want to do in whatever way you want to do it in whatever timeline works best for your life.
It comes out when I want it to come out. And okay, so I have a very, first name basis with my people work at the post office. Fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's the worst things in life. And I've occasionally extended that out. Like I put out 2 Resurrectionist records, put out Vile Bees, put out Hurry Up Shotgun, just bands that are like, in some cases, either you're the best band in this city, but like nobody will pay any attention. In one case, a record label said they were going to put a record out, and they didn't. And I was like, "Screw it, I'll put it out. This record rules." And that's
which one was that? Which one was that?
The first Resurrection is full length, because I was like, "This, you're the most interesting band in Milwaukee by like a large margin, in my opinion." And this record rules. And even if people here don't vibe with it because it isn't just the one type of garage rock that people seem to like here, then it's okay. I'd be willing to put effort into this. And same thing with Vile Bees, where it's like this is good. This is good, and people should know about it. And so I will do what I can to make that happen, knowing full well that I can't even perform miracles for myself, let alone for other bands. But, hey.
I cannot tell you how much I both understand and fully appreciate that attitude.
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing with my label, where I specifically put out records that I knew absolutely were going to lose money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I just didn't give a shit, because I'm like,
it's good.
This is an amazing record and this needs to be heard. And if I happen to break even, awesome. I probably won't. That's not the point. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the world just became a slightly better place because people have access to this thing that they wouldn't otherwise be able to hear.
Exactly.
And music is transformative. Music changes people's lives in ways that are not even tangible, you know?
And it's worth doing because at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're adding to the world in a positive way rather than taking away from it. And it's a labor of love now more than ever because people are just trained to not own music anymore. I'm not talking about music obsessives. Calm down, listeners of the show. I'm sure you're not those people. But average music listener, they rent their music from Spotify or whatever. And they wouldn't even, the entire generation has come up without thinking there ever being a transactional exchange or ownership of music. It's just out there and it's free always for forever. Which is not, there's no way that can be founded in fairness, by the way. And there's no way it's sustainable in its current operation. But that's a larger topic.
Yeah.
In a different podcast.
Sorry for the interruption, but we need to take a quick break for the sponsor of this episode.
This episode is brought to you by Bunny Smut. Are you sick of the Trump administration trying to gut our democracy and turn our country into a dictatorship? Are you disgusted with all the corruption, with the ICE raids against our citizens? Do you agree with the idea of no kings? If so, then Bunny Smut is what you're looking for. T-shirts that scream loudly, no to MAGA, and no to Trump. We're fighting against Trumpism and autocracy one T-shirt at a time. BunnySmut.com.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I was just having a conversation this morning with my wife because I do listen to a lot of music on Spotify. However, I also buy a lot of records.
Same.
Not as many, but here's the weird thing. So I've got all these records stacked up in front of my little entertainment thing, which is like my TV and my stereo and speakers are all like together, right? And I have a bunch of records that are stacked up, and these are the ones that I need to spend more time listening to before I file them on the big shelf in the other room.
Right.
Okay.
There's active duty and there's music reserve.
Here's where it gets weird. I'm like, the piles are getting kind of big. I need to listen to more of these records so I can file them away.
Yeah.
But about 50% of the time, the record's sitting there and I pull it up on Spotify and I listen to it on Spotify. And after I've kind of absorbed it adequately, then I put the physical product up on the shelf. Does that make any sense?
I think it does because I think the streamers have taken the place of radio, really, in a lot of ways, which is the fact that you get to try before you buy. I mean, if you're someone like me who's like on the go a lot, right, then you're probably listening to music, when you're driving around or like at the gym or whatever. But then there's also, you're going to sit down and have the listening experience of, I have put this on and I am listening to this right now. I am not doing other things. I am to engage with it, which is a different listening experience.
It is.
And I'm a
but
record
I think
listener.
I'm just doing it. I'm both. But I mean, I'm talking about in my living room. Like, I am literally looking at the vinyl. I'm looking at this record by Savages.
It's easier just to push a button on the thing, right?
I don't have to lift it. I don't have to flip it. I don't have to, and yet I still know that the actual physical vinyl is going to sound better.
I've done the same thing.
So I don't know.
I was like, honestly, I don't feel like getting up. Well,
I have a remote in my hand.
And there's also, so I feel like it's not luck because it's work, but the idea that we sell records, we sell merchandise as physical product, people buy it because for folks that engage at our level, that's the only way an artist is going to get any support is if you buy merchandise. And thankfully that's been socialized enough that that's just the thing. And there are records you buy because you're like, I want to support this band. And you're like, yeah, that is a good record. I will listen to that at some point. And there's ones where we're like, wow, this is my favorite record of the year and I can't stop listening to this. And I think unless it's the latter, it's fine for that to be on the, maybe I'll pull this one out now and again, And
do you have a favorite record so far this year? And if so, what is your favorite record from last year?
I make a list of these every year. So for this year, the Newbie Hamilton record is probably the one that I've probably spent the most time with. It's amazing. The New McCluskey record, they're buds. We've toured with them. I played with them like in their first iteration. That's how long that's been. Let's see. I'm trying to think of, and I make a list every year, and I do a special episode. They can't go up on YouTube, by the way, because of copyright strikes. But I do a more or less a top 24 of 2024, top 25, because there's always the new Lung record. Jesus Christ, the new Lung record's amazing.
Yeah.
Gaithias, the last Gaithias record's incredible. We Contain Multitudes, wonderful. Nina Saja, Cosmic Kitten, Def Club.
You did a split with Lung, didn't you?
We did. Adult Prom. Yeah, that was great. And
Right.
we covered one of their songs, and they covered one of ours, which I've always wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
And that's so great
Right.
because they sound nothing like us, and we sound nothing like them. So like I was like,
Mhm.
oh, even better. That's great. And then Kate and I do a duet on one of our songs, which is I love that.
Yeah,
crowd,
which and her voice is
too.
lovely.
She's amazing. They're one of my favorite.
Really,
bands.
really.
They're
Yeah.
so good. They're so
Yeah,
consistent.
fantastic.
Recorded. They tour like Black Flag. You know, I mean, like it's what's not to
Mhm.
love. They're amazing. I mean, they
Yeah.
make me look like I'm being lazy.
I don't know if anybody can make you look lazy. So going back to your lazy slovenly self,
Right? Yeah. Just couch potato Conan.
let us get back to something that we started to go down, and then I kind of pulled us off.
Sure.
So you were talking about your partnership with Learning Curve Records, and I think we're maybe about to talk about your subsequent records, Dark Passages.
Yeah. So Dark Passengers. So first record, Enemy of Everyone. Second's Art of Murder. There's the B-sides, Perfectly Reasonable Deviations of the Beaten Track, and then the single series that's collected as a record, but not a record, but is a record, right? So the third record's Dark Passengers. That was the first one on Learning Curve. Concept record about depression and mental health. Heavy stuff, and I am very proud of that record. It's the exact record I wanted it to be. Kind of tough subject matter, songs about suicidal ideation and stuff like that. Okay.
It's interesting because I'm a lifelong sufferer of depression.
Ooh, and people will be like, "What, you?" And it's like, "Yeah, dude, it's not the manic parts you got to worry about."
Yeah. and so what I find interesting just about this title is for probably easily a decade, if not two, I've actually referred to my depression as my Dark Passenger.
I mean, it's perfect. Right?
And suddenly I see a record title that you did, and I'm like, that's kind of a trip.
And even the record cover like looks different than the other ones. The other ones are very bright, kind of color, full of color, etc. This one is like, oh, what's happening here? Oh my, that's very different.
Right.
And so I wanted to address these topics, but also it's like, it's a heavy riff band, right? So I wanted it to sound like the band and not sound depressing. And I say that as like, I'm a huge fan of stuff like Black Heart Procession and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that kind, but it's like, I don't want to do that though. I want it to fit, like slot pretty nicely with everything else, but maybe just like some of the compositions kind of just take as long as they need to, rather than like worrying. Because remember, Protons and Electrons is right before this. And the whole thing is like, whatever it does, it's got to fit on the side of a 7-inch. Like it can't stick around too long. Whatever it does, it could be heavy, it could be poppy, it could be proggy, whatever. It can't stick around that long. So this was the other way of like, no, they'll take as long as they need. Yeah, it was a heavy album to write because you want to get it right. And I'm just like you, I'm a depression sufferer. A lot of people in my life have been as well. And
I think a lot of creative people are.
I think it's more common than people realize. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do this. And I'm okay with the fact that this is very much going to be who it's for. And it's not necessarily going to be for everyone. And it might be too much for people to listen to. And I'm like, that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with taking those risks and doing that thing. I just got to make sure I nail it because you don't want to try to get a second bite of the apple. Dark Passengers 2, The Deuce or something. Like, come on. What are you doing here? Really proud of that record.
The final ending.
Really proud of that record. That's a few people's favorite record. It came out not only during the pandemic, it came out, I want to say the month of the election. Don't do that, by the way. People, don't do that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
We didn't really get the chance to tour that much just because of COVID, but there's a few songs on there that are like sort of live staples, and some that I love playing, but it's kind of a heavy place to go, so I don't feel like doing them every night. But I really love that record. I think that one's great. And then we did Dangerous Nomenclature after that, which is split with the band Erratic Retaliator Strategy. And the whole point of that, pick 3 song titles. Each band writes a song to the song title. And there's a split.
So did Secret Friends pick the song titles for Erratic Retaliator Strategy and vice versa?
We bandied about in a group thread what the song titles would be. Some people contributing more than others. And and we both wrote a song called The Commuter. We both wrote a song called Misplaced Optimism of the Doom. We both wrote a song called Competitive Grief. And again, this is the kind of case where they're very idiosyncratic. They're very unique sounding. I'm like, well, we're not going to sound like each other. So this is going to be interesting. This is going to be cool. And that was a fun release. But again, kind of totally for the people that it's for, right? It's like, here's a weird, like 6-song split. And I love the Erratic Retaliator guys, but we're objectively a bigger band than them. And that's not saying much, but like they're I love them. I adore them, but they're totally a niche band. But I was like, something you just do just for the love of the game.
Yeah. I love the entire conceptual components of how you approach the record. It almost seems, it's nerdy, which I always have an appreciation for nerdy. It's kind of a little bit of an oblique strategy.
Absolutely.
For, people want to kind of go off on the Brian Eno obscurity path. I love, like, here is an idea, here's a concept. You come up with this idea prior to the actual creative process.
Right. And then you fit it in, and you grow to fit the housing, right? And that's same thing with Art of Murder, like, which I originally was going to call Hannibal the Cannibal, but I'm like, that's a little too on the nose.
Right.
And then
right.
Actually, one of the other record titles was Feast of Friends, because Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. There's
okay.
Like, I was like, why does that sound familiar? I'm like, oh no. no, can't do that. Already used. I like that kind of thing. That kind of thing makes me happy. And that's like with Adult Prom, we started talking about that with Lung. We bonded with them early on. We have the same year van. We have 2006 Ford Econoline E350s, and we just fell in love with them early on. We played a thing with them. It was a bunch of, like, dudes yelling rah, 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 bands, and then, like, they played and was like, wow, this is great, and it's very different. Holy moly. And so we played a bunch of stuff with them, including an actual Adult Prom, which is a longer story than I really have time for in this sidebar.
Right.
But I've always wanted to do the thing where you do a split with a band and you cover the other band's song, and like you do like a collaboration. I was like, God, that'd be great. And so I was like, well, that'd be so good to do it with them.
It's like the Mudhoney Sonic Youth split on Sub Pop.
Absolutely. That's
they did that.
That's where it came from, actually, because I remember having that 7-inch, which I unfortunately sold, which probably is worth some money now. But I remember getting that at Amoeba in Berkeley, and just being like, wow, these are like two of my favorite bands, and they have a 7-inch together. Cool. And that's all I knew about it. Yeah.
Right.
And then I didn't even catch the Melvin Steelbolt Bathroom thing being a homage, piss take, whatever, on that. Like, I was like, oh, cool. Two more of my favorite bands have a 7-inch. And I was like, I had the other 7-inch, and I was like, oh, it's like the artwork, like the design is like, okay. But anyway, I like that kind of thing. I always wanted to do it. We did with Lung. We put our vans on the cover. They're paintings of our respective vans. That's fun.
Nice.
So yeah. So Dale, Tony, and I are on one of their songs. Kate does a duet with me on one of our songs. We cover one of theirs, which is a song. When I heard it, I'm like, this sounds like a song I'd write. Like this.
Cool.
This. I was like, this
That's
is my.
great.
I was like, I messaged him immediately. I was like, A, this is my favorite new song of yours. B, maybe the reason why is because it sounds like a song I'd write. And so we started playing that, and that just, for a while, that was like a life staple as well. And then when they did Impossible Task, which is a song from Dark Passengers, I was joking with Tony at the time. I was like, I should just call this one Unfuckwithable Riff, because it's just like, it's based around this like one main riff, right? It's like this relentless riff, and they and in their cover, they don't even play it till the last 2 seconds. And I was like,
really?
That rules. And yeah, it sounds like
That's
PJ Harvey or something. It sounds like, like first record PJ Harvey. And I was like, that's the reason why you do things, right? Where it's like, oh, that's so rad. And that makes me happy. That's the kind of thing that keeps me going creatively, is to have those kinds of things come to fruition. We're like, oh, so cool.
Yeah. It's so satisfying. So let's talk real quickly about The Way of the Neutron.
Yep. AKA the best record I've ever done. Yeah.
It's super solid.
It's sprawling. It's it's the most mixed record that I've ever done, which is to say that we had time with it. So we were like, well, why don't we try doing this? Let's see how it sounds this way. And like, oh, okay, cool. That sounds like, okay, let's try it this way now. I had never done that. I was just been like, let's go, mix it, go, get it out, put it in the mastering. So we tried a bunch of different things, and credit to Toshi, like some of them I'm like, I never in a million years would have thought of doing that. But it's like, oh, that's
and
so
you've
cool.
worked with Toshi across the board on all of your records.
Everything for Secret Friends and the last Victory and Associates record.
Well, I was referring to Secret Friends.
Yeah, correct. And pretty consistently.
And Dale Crover's been your drummer on almost everything.
He's been everything for Secret Friends. Yeah, there's a band I have a Joe Cannon called Action Chief that nobody knows about or really cares about. Household Gods was Lauren K. Newman, Palo Verde. That's a band with Vernon Rumsey of Unwound and Dave Pajo of
Nice.
Slint. But that was like a kind of one and done thing for a number of reasons. And then Chris Bolig, R.I.P., Replicator and Mount Vicious, and Mouse and Victory and Associates. So for someone who's played music as long as I have, I tend to have really long-lived bands that, that don't change lineup.
It's very impressive, I have to say.
So Way of the Neutron that's the new record. It's my favorite record I've ever done, period.
Yeah,
down.
I love it. I love it. And I have one final question, and it only seems appropriate, but why do you do what you do?
Stolen Valor, wow. Yeah, I think I articulated this earlier, that music gave me everything in life. It gave me purpose. It gave me meaning. It gave me a raison d'etre. It gave me some of my most long-lasting friendships, relationships, everything in the world. And being a part of it by playing music is very important, and making the kind of music that I want to hear in the world, trying to be part of that change and part of that community and that greater tapestry. And the other things I do are also part of that as well, trying to make the place a little bit cooler than it was when I came in. And, you know, if you, in the pursuit of perfection, the ultimate failure that happens with that makes something cool in the process.
I love it. I'm gonna end it right there. That's perfect. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Creative Asylum. A quick favor before you go. If you liked this conversation, please be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every Tuesday at 10. You can find us on Instagram and on YouTube at Creative Asylum CA. That's Creative Asylum and the letters CA. Our website is thecapod.com. And our Facebook is the same, facebook.com/thecapod. Until next week, when we'll have a new conversation with another creative disruptor, stay creative in life and at work.